Hello everyone. This is going to be kind of like a brief overview of what type 1 really is versus what sometimes you hear in the media, so like misconceptions and stigmas about type 1. First, type 1 is an autoimmune disease. There is nothing that the person with type 1 did to bring this on themselves. It is essentially the pancreas is no longer producing insulin. That organ is damaged, not functioning properly, not functioning. It is an autoimmune disease. Okay, second is it's a lot of work. It is not something that will ever be reversed. It can't be undone. You can't fix it. Exercise and diet does not make a person with type 1 not have type 1. Okay? The next thing that I would like to say about type 1 misconceptions and stigmas is you have to have insulin. Type 1 diabetic needs insulin to survive. It is essential. It is like oxygen. It is, also referred to as life support for a type 1 diabetic, because if they do not have insulin, they will not live. They will not survive. They will not make it. Insulin is required daily before meals and snacks and such. I won't go into that too much right now, but insulin is required for type 1 diabetics to live. Type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes are not the same. Again, type 1 diabetes, the autoimmune disease, and type 2 diabetes are not the same. They are not the same disease, not the same. One does not produce insulin, and type 2 is insulin resistance. Type 1 diabetes can happen really at any age, but it was also referred to as juvenile diabetes because mostly type 1 was affecting children. You can get diagnosed. I've spoke to someone that was diagnosed all the way up into their 40s. So even 50, I think 52 is the oldest that I've heard of someone newly being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. What else can I say about type 1? A lot of the stuff that you hear in the media or on TV shows or on other social media platforms is just not correct. And it's a lot of work. Type 1 diabetes is hourly. It's from meal to meal. Sometimes in between that, it's daily maintenance. And you're always kind of striving for that perfect, what can be considered perfect glucose number. So for someone that does not have type 1, myself, there is what is considered a normal range between 80 and 120. Typically that's where we will be, the ones that do not have type 1. So in people with type 1, obviously the goal is to kind of also put you in that normal range, and you're always kind of chasing that number. You're adjusting and counteracting, being proactive, working on preventing. There are highs and there are lows. Okay, what do I mean by that? So you can do everything correct in the day of a type 1 diabetic. You can do what you think is correct and what you've been doing. And from day to day, one thing that was great yesterday and worked with one meal may not work with the next meal. And so sometimes you can run high. They call it having highs. And a high blood sugar really truly is, I think anything over 2, but really technically, when you get in the middle to high 2s, 250, that's considered high. There are some things that you can do to bring that down. Obviously, one is give insulin, exercise, or drink some water. That will help. Highs and lows change the personality. There are mood swings. There just are. Highs for my daughter, she's 11. She gets kind of moody, a little bit of, she can be combative. She can get a headache sometimes. And they need to bring that number down to make them feel better. It's hard for them to kind of concentrate. They just don't feel well. Lows, that's another that's another tough one, because when they're low, meaning their blood glucose level is dropping below where it should be. That is dangerous as well. Low glucose can result in unconsciousness, seizures, coma, and the worst being, obviously, you can die, death. Every type 1 and every parent of a type 1, their worst fear is that they go to bed and they have a low blood sugar and no one knows, and then they don't wake up. When my daughter and every type 1 is low, there are the classic typical symptoms, signs of a low. I can kind of tell on my daughter's face, her eyes, she just looks, I don't know, I've gotten used to looking at her, very hungry. They get ravenous. They know that they are low. Shaky hands, you can feel a little shaky. I've heard of, you can feel sweaty. My daughter can tell me, I'm going low, I think I'm going low. And then the high, the dangers of the high is a damage to, there's so many things that it can affect in your body, your eyes, your nerves, your feet, your hormones. It affects everything. I did not realize how vital and normal functioning pancreas is to your everyday life and health and safety and well-being. It controls and affects everything. Other organs, your eyes, your teeth. And so highs, you get nervous about ketones, which actually our daughter was diagnosed in the emergency room in DKA. And that just is an abbreviation for diabetic ketoacidosis. That's also life-threatening. It can be fatal. And after our daughter was diagnosed, I read many horror stories of children going to bed. Parents did not know they were type 1. They had no clue, didn't know the signs and symptoms of type 1, and didn't know that it was DKA. And they go to sleep and they don't wake up. They don't come out of it. They don't recover from DKA, and it can happen. So anytime there's a high, you worry about DKA kind of lurking, in the background if you don't bring that number down. And you bring that number down with insulin. And then again, the low, you worry about the low. You're going too low that maybe you can't chew or swallow, and how a low is treated is with carbs. They usually have to get some sugar in them quick, some carbs. Every type 1 has their quick go-tos. There's glucose tablets. Our daughter does Starburst, usually about 3 of them will do the trick. A lot of people they carry little tubes of cake frosting. When you're going low, you need something fast. You need some help. Even though you're on insulin and you're, doing what you're supposed to be doing, there are days where they're harder. There are some days that are harder. You're chasing a high, trying to get it down, or you're trying to work on a low, trying to get it up. And it's really like a seesaw some days. It's a lot of work. And I just want you to know that if you know someone that has type 1, just know that they work very, very hard to appear normal. Thanks so much for watching. This is just the beginning of this channel, and I hope to do a lot of videos like this where I'm just sharing and hoping to help educate and spread awareness around type 1, because the misconceptions just drive me nuts. There's nothing our 11-year-old daughter, when she was 10, was diagnosed, did to get type 1. It's not because we let her eat poorly, or she didn't exercise enough, or her body just failed her, really. And that's basically it. Thanks so much.